I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody, welcome. Looking for a roll call, please.
You got it. Saban. Present. Schreiber is absent. Bergbauer. Here. Galogli.
Here.
Deskin.
Here.
Lobes.
Here.
Bartleson.
Here.
And Peretta.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, very good. Pastor Lou, I see is here. If you can open us up in prayer, please.
Almighty God, we thank you for your presence in our lives and many blessings you have given us in our country. We take time to pray for the people in the Bahamas who have sustained severe flooding and property damage in the wake of Hurricane Dorian. For the families of people who have lost their lives and for the families whose homes remain in the islands severely damaged and destroyed, we lift them up to you and ask you to give them comfort. As the hurricane is now heading up the coast of Florida and threatening several of the eastern coast states, we ask you for your mercy and protection on the affected areas. We ask you for safety for all the rescue teams working in the Bahamas and those who remain in the path of the storm. Tonight, we ask you to bless our mayor, our city council, and staff to have your wisdom to guide our city. Bless their families with your love, peace, health, and joy. Help our city to be a place of unity in dealing with matters without division or antagonism. We request your protection for our schools, our students, teachers, to keep them safe from all acts of violence. We ask you to bless those who are serving in the military and their families, and the first responders, the fire and police. Give them wisdom and protection in every situation. Bring them home safely. As we approach 9/11, we ask for your continued comfort for families who lost loved ones on that day and from other acts of terrorism that have affected families throughout our country, as well as those who have died from 9/11 related illnesses. We ask you to comfort their families. Help us to remember and honor the heroic acts of the first responders and the citizens of that day. We ask you tonight for your blessing in this place, in your powerful name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Lou. All right, my friends. Anybody have any liaison reports?
I do, but if anybody else wants to go first? No?
Yes, I actually wanted to ask the Public Works engineer about the LED lighting program and any updates that he might have for us.
All right. Good evening. Thank you, Mark. I do have a little bit of information regarding the LED lighting that both ComEd has done across the city, which some of you may have noticed, and then also what we've done out here in front of City Hall. Just real quick, a little bit about ComEd. We do have approximately 786 streetlights that ComEd, that we call ComEd lights. We pay a standard fee, standard rate for each of those lights, but there are 786 of those that ComEd came to us earlier this year and asked to replace to LED. Not really asked, said that we're replacing it to LED. All the other communities in the area were also doing this, so the city of Lockport has had this done across the city throughout 2019 as well. With that, what the anticipated savings are for the city of Lockport, now this is what's the city of Lockport savings based on this new light, LED light, would be, it's roughly $4 a fixture per month. So per month, the average cost will be about, or the average savings will be about $3,000. Annual savings, $36,000, a little over $36,000. So again, this is the savings from the light fixtures that have been replaced and the LED bulbs that have been placed in those. The LED bulbs themselves, they are 3,000 Kelvin in color temperature, so the Kelvin is really what we're trying to stay consistent with when we're thinking about this from a city standpoint. So when we're thinking about this from our own lights, we want to do something that matches what ComEd's done, especially since ComEd's already obviously done 786 across the city. So from a standpoint of you know, what I would like to bring this evening or for consideration, my recommendation, my suggestion would be that we stay within that 10% either way. So if we want a little bit whiter light or a little bit softer light, we can change that Kelvin. And just again, this is just a suggestion, plus or minus 300 Kelvin, so up to 3,300 give or take, and down to 2,700 give or take. Again, that will match relatively closely, but that would be kind of the wiggle room that I would suggest. That being said, the lights that we have out here do match that 3,000 Kelvin. So this is really ideally what we would like is to hear from, you know, from council, from the mayor, obviously, and then from our residents, if this is something that we would like to consider. Obviously, the savings is very nice. You know, over $36,000. That's a substantial savings. Also the length, the longevity of the bulbs is another you know, key attribute to this. So certainly something that a lot of communities have done, and you know, for us, I think this is something good to consider.
I have a question for you,
Thank
Brett.
Yes.
It's a related question. I know that ComEd has been doing smart grid stuff, and is there any, do you anticipate, or has there been any discussion with them doing the smart grid, which then would allow us to actually be able to program the lights? Is this their next step, do you know? Or,
Honestly, I don't know
Don't
that I don't know for the city of Lockport that is. As you kind of pointed out, I mean, the smart grid, the dialing it down to, you know, the second versus right now, it's based on averages, it's based on what time of year it is, it's based on how much daylight we have. It's just it's made to take care of the worst case scenario in the winter, let's say. So it's going to be on a little bit longer than maybe it should. But to your point, yeah, that's absolutely something that could be considered. There are almost countless options when it comes to lighting and the operations of lighting. So that is something we could certainly look into.
Okay.
The other thing I want to mention is the 4 fixtures that we replaced in the downtown on Hamilton are out there after the meeting, maybe on your own, go out and take a look. We replaced the glass bulb on that as well. And I know the downtown is very sensitive in regards to the color of the lighting and the Kelvins. And so take a good look at those. It's between 8th and 9th. And 4 of them are the original and 4 are the new ones. And it's not just the bulb, it's the new glass that we chose
Correct.
too, which I think looks really nice. But take a look at it, give us some feedback, email or text us, and we'll start changing those out in the downtown.
And we can do these in-house. So it's an in-house for the downtown fixtures. It is an in-house process, relatively quick. We had those 4. That was the first of these that we put up in the city, and we were able to do them all in a day. And that was, you know, that was from scratch again, not really having gone into it with any past experience with this particular light. So I think it's going to be, again, a good option, a good opportunity for us if that's the route that the city would like to proceed.
As we go through the neighborhoods that have the similar ornamental lighting, is it on an as-needed basis with replacement of the new LEDs, or is it neighborhood-wide?
This is certainly up to, I think, everybody's discussion. My suggestion would be that it would be subdivision-wide or grid-wide, so to speak. If it's not necessarily a subdivision, it would be taking portions of the city, similar to what we do with our CIP program, which is try to you know, keep everybody moving together as a certain area or as a neighborhood. So we would improve that at once. It can be something that we look to do over a period of years or a period of months.
We could take the budget savings each year to purchase those fixtures and start swapping them out and kind of snowball those savings as we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So is there any other specific question that I can provide or more information that would be helpful to council? I think the biggest thing is hearing from everybody that they like this color. As Ben mentioned, this, you know, is everybody liking the visible lights that we have out here? Is everybody liking that and willing
And
to
I
move
think
forward?
what ComEd has installed is pretty good. And
Okay.
my main thing was, you know, as we go through this, will there be any need to modernize the lighting code in terms of light pollution or the amount of lumens used going forward?
So are the,
I do.
so are the lights in the Hamilton light, would those be the old lights, old style lights? Because they flashed on and off all last weekend during Moose Fest.
You're talking the
Actual
new bulbs?
Is that, I mean, is that what's flashing? Are they new or are they old in the Hamilton lot?
Hamilton lot are old.
Change the lighting.
Those are old still.
Nothing,
Okay.
The only
nothing.
two lights, and we can look at them
Much
after
in
council,
Hamilton.
are right out
Okay,
here.
I didn't know what 786 lights have been swapped out. Yeah.
Until I guess until I hear from council, I would prefer not to,
Okay.
change any of these to LED because I want to make sure that's really the route we want to go.
Do we have an approximate price for the whole city?
I can certainly work that up.
Okay. I would just think it would be better to try and do it more at the same time than space it out, because then it might be half our city gets done and then half our city doesn't.
I think ComEd's done, or are they still out rolling theirs? I don't know.
They do have a
Most of them done.
very small quantity left. They might actually be done. This was information that we were provided last week, and they were still working on it. So they might be
Street lights do
completed.
we have on top of the 700?
About 600,
Okay.
a little under 600 total.
So we're halfway there probably
Is it
already.
something maybe we should just discuss, that it should be citywide, so that way we can move forward, or what is council?
You know, I think if it's be a big chunk of change if you do the whole city at once. I think doing neighborhoods so there's some consistency as we have the funding to do it. Like Ben said, if we have savings after we do one section, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I don't have a super strong opinion on it. If
Could
you guys
add
feel
a line
differently.
item to capital, maybe that's just, you could add 50,000 a year to it like we do with trees, and you could also use savings each year, and as that snowballs, you can do more and more. But yeah, we're welcome to, it kind of feels like everybody's ready to go to this finally. And really, the concern was the historic downtown and some of those antique fixtures that we need to replicate, and then the rest of the streetlights pretty much look the same as the ComEd ones.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we'll come back to you with some price estimates, and we'll talk about it during the budget process and get consensus. And
All right, sounds good. The lights, I like the moody orange lights, but I was outvoted by my family, who likes the whiter lights. So yeah, what can I do? By the way, my daughters, when I was showing them the lights, see what they think. They saw the new fountain. I said, "You guys see the fountain? It shoots up full now, and not that dribble." And they applauded. It's kind of funny to see my 8-year-old and 13-year-old applaud the fountain. So, thank you for fixing that. All right, anybody else have anything? Catherine, did you have something?
Yes, 3 topics today. First one, I'm sure a lot of you already know, the ABC Morning News on Friday will cover our Friday flyover at the Lockport East High School. There will be a helicopter hovering over in the early morning, so please don't panic that you see a helicopter circling around Lockport this Friday. Channel 7 will be doing this every week at a different school, and we happen to be highlighted this Friday. Second one is Citizens Police Academy, starts on Monday at 6 p.m. There are still a few open spots if anybody's interested, and so feel free to sign up. It's a great program. I know Joanne's done it, Darren's done it, I've done it. It's a great program, so if anybody's interested in doing it. You've done it? Oh, Ben, you did it too? See, so you can applaud to the program too then. And then the third one is going to safest city for Lockport. There was a different study that came out, and Lockport was ranked 18th in the state of Illinois. Warrenville came in number 1, and this was based on background checks. The website is backgroundchecks.org, Safest Cities Illinois, and this group did analyzes 2,900 cities in the U.S., and so that's like another status where Lockport keeps coming in. And then Chief mentioned we have the opportunity to add a digital badge to the police website if we're interested, to be able to have that. If different groups keep analyzing Lockport's data and saying we're ranked here, it's different orders too. So when I say we're 18th here, there were other towns, because I was comparing the two, that didn't even make the list. So on this list, there's certain towns that don't even make it that made the other list. So for us to keep showing up on different lists is really good. I think that's really impressive. So not every town makes it, so we're doing good. And our neighboring towns that made it last time are not on this list, so I thought that was pretty impressive. Don't want to name any towns, but if you want to say anything else, I just thought that was impressive. So we're coming in good for safest cities. So that's it.
Very good. All right, anybody else have anything?
Sorry.
All right, we'll move on.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, we'll, just a little bit of change in your agenda. We're going to move CA1 up, and then I know Sonny's going to handle AT1 and PZ1. And if you haven't met Rod Tonelli. He's going to help us with PZ2. He's been helping us out in the Planning and Zoning Department while we've got some vacancies going on right now. So without further ado, let's, CA1 is the updating a Lockport Code of ordinances. This is, Lockport is a home rule community, and mayor and council can set rules and policy and regulations in the municipal code. Chapter 95 pertains to outdoor special events and permits, and that has not been changed since 2014. Chapter 95 specifically in the Code of Ordinances talks about the rules and regulations for the changes for these permits. And there's really three main changes that we're proposing. One is we're trying to sync the city's noise ordinances with the timing to 10 p.m. We're trying to have any active HOA that is involved in these communities also have to provide consent. And then we're looking to do a little housekeeping and clean up any city names and individuals and just clarify the Public Works Department as people to contact for that. I know JR had one question that came up in regards to community-wide events versus neighborhood events with the noise ordinance. My solution with that was that we could leave the discretion of the city administrator who signs off on these permits, authorizing till midnight if it was more of a Oktoberfest, community type event versus just somebody having a rock band, in their neighborhoods, if that works for everybody.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Anybody else? All right, we're good with consent on this? Or any questions?
The actual item that would be for consent is, we're going to delete the whole entire last part in
Okay.
parentheses, because that's for internal purposes only with the name of the personnel at Public
Right.
Works and the phone number.
P2.
That's going to be deleted. So it looks
Okay.
like that's going to be kept, but the whole item's going to be deleted. Not that it changes the substance to changes, so I would recommend just having it on the consent, but just FYI, it's going to be slightly different with a minor change.
Everybody okay with that? We good? All right, thank you. What's next? We're going to AT1 now?
Yes. Oh, AT1, that's my item. Mayor, members of the City Council, AT1 is an annexation agreement for a property located at 207 Morgan Street. This property is owned by Valerie and Daniel Akins, and they reside at the property. They basically want to annex in the city of Lockport, and they filed a petition for annexation to annex in primarily because they want to connect to the city water system. Their private well stop functioning, and they need the water from the city, and so they filed a petition, pay the appropriate fees to be annexed in, and because it's not a development, a large development, the annexation is pretty simple. It will allow them to continue their use of their property. The zoning's going to be from R3 unincorporated Will County into R1 City of Lockport, and they will be able to use their private septic system they still have, and as long as it meets their household needs and as long as it's working. If it's not working, they would have to have it replaced. If they sell the property, the new owner would have to connect to the city's sewer system. So it is contemplated that the public hearing for this would be September 18th at the city council meeting along with the rezoning. And this is the plat of survey. There's no need to have a right-of-way dedication because the right-of-way along Washington Street and Morgan Street are already there. So unlike the previous annexations that the city council considered, this one already includes the right-of-way. This is the annexation plat. If there's any questions about the annexation agreement, I would be more than happy to answer them. No? Okay.
Anyone?
I did have just one question. They've already connected to our well, right?
Yes.
I just would ask that in the future, we could just get a courtesy email saying this happened. I know they had to have it connect because they had no water, but, I'm reading that in the packet that it happened. I have no problem with them connecting because when I looked up on the maps, there's already the water's right there.
It is right
it's
there.
all right there. I looked that up I had old maps to look at. I was like, they should all be connected. They're all right there already.
No,
But
yeah.
I'm just saying that, the water's right there. It wasn't like we had to make a line go far to get to them.
No, it's there, but they're in unincorporated Will
Yeah, they're
County.
in unincorporated, but it wasn't like it was an unreasonable request. There's water there.
Yeah.
Basically, you're looking for a heads up next time.
Yeah, that's all I'm looking for. It's just like
I
an
authorize
email.
it, but I can send an email
Yeah.
out when
Yeah, so I have no problem. They lost their water and stuff, but You know,
They had a young child that they were worried and concerned about not providing clean water.
yeah,
So
just
that's
give
why,
us an email instead
Okay.
of reading it on Friday in the packet.
Sounds fine.
Thank you.
So next step is we'll wait for the hearing, correct?
Yes, and then I will also take care of the PZ1, which is it goes with the annexation agreement. It's the rezoning of that same property at 207 Morgan Street, as I indicated, from R3 to R1, City of Lockport. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a hearing back on August 13, 2019, to have a hearing regarding the rezoning. The only citizen that appeared was a resident of the neighboring property who's in unincorporated Will County. His only concern was that he thought he was being forced annexed. When we clarified his property wasn't being annexed, it was just the 207 Morgan Street property, he had no objection to the property being rezoned. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended the approval of the rezoning, and again, nothing of concern on this property. The property has no outstanding, outstanding code issues, so with this item would also be placed at the city council meeting for September 18th.
Okay, so, but we don't need, is that a hearing or just?
No,
this
it's
is
not a
just
hearing.
vote?
The public hearing was held before the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right,
The
okay.
public hearing will be on the annexation agreement, but we kind of merged the two items together into one.
So we won't do anything till after the hearing on PZ1?
Yes.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Any questions before we move on? Okay,
September 18th. Yeah,
PZ2.
but not a
All
public
right,
hearing.
Mayor and council members, PZ2 is a case for B&B Foods, which is currently located in downtown Lockport. They're acquiring property in Prime Business Park on the corner of Prime and Wall Street. There's 3 lots there now that they're combining into one parcel. What you'll be considering at your next council meeting is a resolution to approve their final development plan and the plat that will consolidate those lots into one parcel. The Plan Commission reviewed it at their August meeting. What they reviewed is their full development plan. They're proposing approximately a 38,000 square foot building. That building can expand then in the future to another 24,000 square feet. They're only going to occupy part of the site at this time. They'll have 60 parking spots. The building meets our architectural requirements. There's one side that only has one material on it, but that's because that's where the building's going to expand in the future, and the Plan Commission was okay with that recommendation. They reviewed the landscaping, lighting, et cetera, and were good with all of that. In terms of history, you'll probably recall that this was before you back in April. You actually approved a special use at that time to allow the food distribution and processing facility as a unique use in the O2 zoning district, and you saw the concept plan for this at this time, so it's in line with what you reviewed and approved back in April. The city engineers have reviewed it, and developers have resubmitted plans that comply with all of the requirements and expectations, so it should be ready to go. As I said, there was nobody at the P&Z meeting to object or make any comments, just the applicant and their designer was there. And the Plan Commission kind of went through all of the things you'd expect and vetted landscaping, the building. They talked about noise and daily operations, et cetera. At the end of the day, they were very happy with the project, and they recommended it with a vote of 7-0. So you have unanimous approval to bring it to you. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. And then the architect is here as well.
The only question that I have, Rodney, is the part of the building that eventually someday will be expanded. Do they have to come in front of the zoning board or city council at that point?
They will, yes. They'll have to come back and do another final development plan that'll show how they'll expand the building, how they'll expand the parking, and at that time, we'll go through all the same details with lighting, landscaping, architecture, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Other thoughts, concerns?
Nice looking project.
Okay. That's good. So what do you need from us? Is this going to be just as an
On
action?
your council agenda in 2 weeks for approval.
Okay.
It could be on the consent, since there's no public hearing, and unless there's any objections from the members of the city council, it could be on consent.
How do you guys feel about it? Are we okay with the consent?
Roll call. Consent, roll call? Roll call. Roll call, I guess.
Like a roll call? Okay, we would like a roll call.
Do it as action.
Sounds good. The only, I guess, question I had was, there was some concern once about doing on-site cooking or stuff. That was a concern. I believe that's still not an issue here. That's not something that's,
Don't make soup.
okay. What did you say, Ben?
I said they don't make soup.
Okay, all right.
That
So
was a
that's all
question, I think, at the last meeting.
good. Okay, all right, my friends, we'll put it on roll call then for our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, PW1.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a fun item this evening for the STP, a Raptor wash press. Sounds a lot cooler than it is. So what we have currently is a wash press that's almost 20 years old. Can no longer be repaired or replaced, so we're asking this evening for consideration for a new unit. The new unit, again, is expected to last for, again, another 15 to 20 years. And the cost is, we're looking for $38,100 to be approved this evening for Lakeside Equipment Corporation to provide us with that unit and for the install.
All right, thoughts, questions, concerns? Everybody on board?
We do have 3 quotes attached as well. So, yep, you're welcome.
Okay. All right, we'll put it on consent, please.
Thank you. Next item, PW-2, release of the bond for the Christian Brothers Automotive project. If council is not driven by yet on 159th, just east of the DuPage Medical facility, the Christian Brothers Automotive property has been completed, and in my opinion, it turned out very nice. I think everything on it, building-wise, landscaping, overall a great project and great addition to the city. This evening, both the public and private improvements have been completed, inspected, and are ready for full acceptance by the city. So this evening, we'd be looking for council's consideration to release the amount of $348,336.32 for the existing letter of credit, and that will be replaced with a 10% maintenance bond for 1 year. As always, this release tonight would not officially take effect until we have that 10% maintenance bond. A lot of times they don't want to have the 10% and the letter of credit out there at the same time. So with council's concurrence this evening, and then in 2 weeks, we would let the applicant know, and then we would, upon time we get the actual 10% maintenance bond, hand them the letter of credit back. So the letter of credit will stay in effect until we have that in hand. Looking for consideration this evening on this item.
All right, thoughts, concerns? Looks like we're all good. So we can do this as a consent, or do you want it to be, what are you looking for from me, Brent?
Consent would be
Okay.
great, thank
We all
you.
good with that then? Okay. All right, PW3.
PW-3 this evening, well 15. Well 15 well house and treatment plant. What this means, if council, for those of you that have not heard, we have struck water, so we have officially completed our excavation for well 15. So roughly 1,620 feet down, we have completed the well. The well is a very solid producing well. We have sampled the water, which means now we know how to treat it, we know what we need to do, and we know how to blend that, and we know what we need to do to get this out to our residents. So this evening, what we're looking for, first off, is well 15 well house and treatment plant phase 3 construction engineering services. So this would be the engineering services in order to make sure that it gets completed appropriately, make sure that it gets tested appropriately, and make sure that the EPA paperwork is all completed accurately, make sure that it's up and running, and as I'm talking here, just want to make sure that I have the right amount. So what we'd be looking for this evening would be $258,750 this would be to Strand Associates, Inc. So this would be the cost, again, just for the Phase 3 construction engineering services. This was a budgeted amount, as I mentioned here in paragraph 3. The construction and the engineering, we had a budgeted amount of $4,463,000. That included our low-interest loan and then also the water and sewer funding. With the next item, which is PW-4, and this item, we're looking at coming in under that $4,463,000 budgeted item by about $100,000. So we are looking to come in underneath the original estimate and budgeted items. So this evening, looking for council's consideration for consent agenda for Strand Associates, $258,750.
Okay, does anything unexpected when you sampled your water? Anything curveballs?
Very, very good, very positive. Again, a very, very good producing well. So everything was very good.
And those engineering costs are folded into the loan with the IPA, so
Okay.
that's where the money comes from.
Can I ask you what's going to sound like a silly question for an engineer?
Yeah.
But because I'm a layperson, when you guys drill down and you hit water, do you have to go deeper into it as opposed to like if you start siphoning water when you first hit it, does it dry up and you have to go deeper later to get the water? How does that work?
We do go deeper, yes. So you don't stop right when you hit water. So we get down into the actual aquifer. So you, essentially it's a storage tank underground. You can think of it as a storage tank underground. And so that water is within a rock formation. And excuse me, as we break through that, exactly like you said, if we stop at the very top and you keep your straw at the very top, eventually there will be days when we need to draw additional water, or we're taking additional water out of there. That drawdown will occur, and we will not be able to get any additional water. So yes, exactly like you mentioned, we break through and then we get down into where, again, the well driller feels as though this is a good level. We have the surrounding wells in Lamont and Romeoville. It's the same aquifer, so we know about where we need to get to. And then when we're out there, we see the pumping action, we know we're in good solid water.
Okay. All right, anybody have any other questions, concerns? Are we good with the consent on this?
Yeah, when do you think it'll be completed, though, the total thing? Because I don't know, it's going like a year now, right?
Yes, it'll be another year. The project, if everything goes very smoothly, the hope would be that by the end of next year, we would be very close to flipping the switch and actually being able to produce water. Obviously, that's kind of a rough, a year. End of next year is cold weather. It could be nasty weather. So it may be the spring of 2021 is when ultimately, early spring 2021.
I have a related question. The
Yes.
water line on Gauga Road that we're putting in, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks?
The water line will be done mid-October, and then we have one PRV station that needs to go in. That station goes in on 167th Street, just west of 355. So that will be starting after the line is in. So the line will be fully operational, fully functional. We'll be dispersing water throughout the city. We'll be actually improving fire flows, and it will be like I said, mid-end of October, we'll have the line up and running.
And so when that happens, for the first time ever, we'll have a looped system from the entire city.
We will.
It's huge.
Yes.
It's huge.
Yes.
Nice. All right.
Yep.
All right, very good. PW4?
PW-4, this is tying right in along with PW-3. We had 9 bidders in attendance for the Well 15 well house and treatment plant. So we did have a very good showing. We feel like we had solid bids. I wouldn't say they're great. I definitely wouldn't say they're bad. Again, with 9 bidders, we had a wide variety. But $4,104,000 is what we're requesting from council. And this is this would be awarded to the low bidder of Tinneman Construction Company. This is somebody that Strand is recommending. They've worked with in the past, have had good, good back history with them. So we feel comfortable with this group. And again, this portion of this, majority of this will be the EPA loan fund. Again, this combined with our PW-3 item, the engineering, came in under our budgeted amount by roughly $100,000. So we'd be looking for consent this evening for the award of this project to Tinneman for $4,104,000.
All right, thoughts, concerns? All right, if we're all good, we'll throw it on the consent. Okay, thank you. All right, Yes, I know we kind of blazed through that, but as Darren mentioned, it's big stuff. It's a big deal, so looking forward to that coming to completion. All right, Brent, PW5.
EW-5, this one, these are some of the, I guess, the projects that I'm really excited to see done. If you flip to the last page of the packet, there's actually an aerial with some green highlights and some orange highlights. The green highlights are what we're planning on doing next year. So as you can see, that's a large portion of State over to Madison, and again, Second down to about Fifth. And then the following year, so what we're looking for in this project would be the orange, which is picking that up from Fifth Street, going down to Ninth, so going south to Ninth, and again from State to Madison. This will essentially finish off, complete this entire quadrant of work. It will be curb and gutter, storm sewer, water main, roads, sidewalks, aprons, landscaping. It will be a all-inclusive project, very similar to to 17th and Jefferson this year, which I think turned out very well, and then also the project next year, 15th to 18th, and again, State to Madison. So just wanted to point that out. So when you look at the detail here, we have 4 projects. This was something that about a year and a half ago, when we started looking at additional bonding capacity and some alternatives for funding, we talked about bringing projects up, and we also talked about combining. And so far, so good. We've been able to combine. We've been able to reduce costs by probably 20%, and that's substantial when you're talking about $5 and $6 million projects by themselves. We bring that together, and we're able to get these for $4.5 to $5 million. So we're saving large chunks of money. We're also, one of the things that I think is a benefit to our residents, it is making one summer kind of a nightmare rather than 4 summers. So that's another thing that I really think is a benefit. And it also gets our tax dollars back into our infrastructure and really, back to the residents, I think, a lot quicker. And so I'm really excited about this. I think just looking at that picture just shows everybody just how much we're looking to get done over the next 2 years. So with that being said, I'm asking this evening for the Phase 2 design, and this would be for, again, 5th to 9th, from Madison to State. This is for the design engineering services for the attached 4 projects. These were projects that we're looking to be done in the years in 22, 23, 24, and 25. So you can see we're moving these up, 5, 6, 7 years. But these are areas that are in dire need. If you drive 8th Street, for instance, from Washington east over to Madison, I can't tell you, I understand how bad that road is, and it needs to be done. So waiting another 3-4 years to do that, I think this is a great opportunity to complete this. Looking to provide these services in the amount of $357,750. This would be, again, to Strand Associates, who is working on the current project, the 2nd to 5th project. And the budgeted amounts, if these were to be done individually, was $414,400. So $60,000 in savings just in engineering by doing these all as one large project. So again, consent this evening would be the request of Engineering and Public Works. Any questions?
So I'm looking at that orange and green one, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's all getting done at once? How do you drive around?
The orange,
I'm
orange will be done in 2021, and the
Okay.
green will be done in 2020.
Okay.
So we will have 2nd Street will essentially be a major east-west arterial, and then 6th Street next year. So 2nd and 6th will kind of be the 2 east-west streets for next year. And then we will, Hamilton, there's only 1 block of Hamilton, so that is kind of the main, I guess, north-south thoroughfare, and then obviously State Street would be the other. This will always be open to local traffic, so anybody that lives in these blocks, they will always have access. Every night they will have access until we pour their actual apron or the curb in front of their house, in which case they'd be out for about 3 or 4 days at a time. But other than that, all of these residents will have access to their homes.
Okay. Same thing, think about the parade route too? where cars are lining up? Because isn't that a lot of the streets there then, that they're lining up sort of, or no, like with the parade? We detour cars through that, so something to think about when all that comes through.
Well, we'll have to make accommodations. We're not gonna not do the project.
No, I want the project done, but it's a lot of little, traffic flow things too then.
Sure.
Just keep that in mind. I mean, obviously if we plan knowing those things are coming, but that's the only other thing I can think of that would be a conflict there.
Absolutely. We'll work, hand in hand with, I know the police department always does a fantastic job working with us and making sure those
Okay.
detour routes are where they should be. Even this year, we had Division Street work being done, so we had to accommodate, so
Right.
absolutely, we'll
And then-
make sure we can accommodate.
I'm glad it's getting done. Are there any projects that are in the CIP that are not getting done as a result of this?
No.
Okay, so that's good then.
Absolutely not.
That was
No,
my other
we're-
question.
yep.
Thank you.
I did have a comment and something I want to run by the council. So, one thing I've asked Brent, and we've talked about, is two things. Is when we're working in the older neighborhoods, is one, doing everything within our power to maintain the tree canopy. I hate losing mature trees because of these projects, and so if there's ways when we're designing it, if we can do our best to maintain our tree canopy, I think is very important. The other thing is, for quite some time, when roads have been redone in the old neighborhood, there's been this kind of idea of widening them to kind of standards as if it were a new subdivision. And I've shared with Brent that I don't think that's the right thing to do, but I want to make sure I have council support on this. I think one of the things that makes the old neighborhood a place that people move to it for is it's smaller streets, it has more of a charm to it. If they wanted to live in a subdivision with full wide streets that are modern codes, they would move to those subdivisions. And so sometimes when we get done with these projects, like, the street is so wide and I lost all my trees. And so I have asked that we maintain our street widths, even though they don't meet necessarily modern code standards, as best as possible and where it makes sense, and to preserve our tree canopy. So that was something I asked of them, but I want to make sure how we all feel about this.
Since I actually live in an area that has seen a lot of this construction done, we haven't really lost a whole lot of trees that I can think of. Maybe there might be 3 trees for every 30 or 40 or 50 trees. The biggest complaints I have, and it would not be in this area, on the south end, is people are losing their parkway parking. Okay, that's the big issue, and of course, that was taken care of 20 years or so ago by a previous council. Said anything that we do, we're gonna go ahead and bring streets up to code, and non-mountable curbs, and in a couple years, people get over it. So I'd much rather be consistent what we've been doing, for the past decade or so, than it seems to be working.
Yeah, I don't.
That's just my
Yeah, I don't think it does work. I think we lose the integrity of the older neighborhood by widening the streets. That they weren't designed that way, and to force modern standards into them, I think, is actually, I don't think it's been the right thing to do, and I don't want to just maintain something that's not healthy for the integrity of the neighborhood just because we've been doing it. So that's fine. If Darren's stay the course, rest of you guys have opinions?
Maintain the canopies as best as possible. I know that the City of Chicago has done some newer type restoration of their roads because of canopy loss on the north side. Maybe we can look into that. But I think keeping the canopy is important because it is part of the character. It's part. I mean, I live in a part of town with the wider streets and there's no canopy. And honestly, I wouldn't mind living in the part of town that does have the canopy. But that canopy comes with having narrower streets, maybe a narrower sidewalk. But if it had improved curbs, if the street was improved, and I would accept the fact that my street's a little narrower, but I do have the canopy that I wanted. I do have the character that I wished. So I think, yes, it can still be approved, but without destroying the canopy.
Okay, just one thing on the canopy, maybe Brent, you can help me out on this. As I drive around town, most of the trees that I see, the mature trees, are silver maples, which have a lifespan of about 55 to 70 years, and there are very few trees that are under the age of 70 years within this whole area. So these are trees that are literally at the end of their lifespan anyway. And a lot of these trees are hollow on the inside. These are the ones that, in storms, these are the ones that fall and break. So I understand, try to save the canopy, but these mature trees, there is a lifespan, and they all are reaching, rapidly coming to the end of their lifespan. So,
Well, I think we can make judgment calls,
yeah.
you know?
We've actually been doing a little bit of compromise in trying to make a common sense approach, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, I think some of the streets we were kind of doing every other, and where it made sense, where arterials were kind of, traffic was going towards the church, it was a little wider, but the feel of those neighborhoods were maintained, and we've been kind of relying on engineering to kind of design that into these phases as they move along, and we're trying to respect the integrity of what's going on now. I think some of the things that the mayor was talking about was, some prior things we've done. There were some streets that were really wide, and we're trying to avoid doing that right now. We also get a savings in asphalt by doing that. We get to do more blocks, so.
Yeah, and really, I think you're right, Ben. It was really about, let's look at each one of these streets as unique, because they are, instead of just cookie cut and say, everything's got to be X feet wide. And so it does take into consideration. Sometimes they have been widened a little bit. I know that, while I didn't particularly like the look of it, it made sense years ago when they did it on my street, because every morning all the buses go down the street, and it made it almost impossible to have two-way traffic. And so those were things that have to happen. I do agree with Darren on maintaining the course as far as removing the parkway parking. It's true, I know residents will like it, but it also helps discourage the rental unit properties that have 8 cars, and they get upset because they can't park in the parkway anymore because it's a rental unit. Well, it's like, as much as I think, discouraging the multi-unit homes, the homes that were converted into multi-units is, I have no problem maintaining that course that we've had for the last 10 years.
I would like to say that I would like 2 streets to be widened if possible, the ones that are close to City Hall, just because I'd like more parking there for the car shows. If there's land, I would like it to make it so you can have a couple more spots right there. So I think there's 2 streets that are on the projection that would be close to City Hall, or anything that could add to a few more spaces in downtown. I know there's people that sometimes complain for the car shows, there's not enough parking. So anything that's close to this building, if we're going to keep using this building, I'd like to add more parking.
All right, well, obviously, you get the general
that's a
gist
case
of where
by
we're
case.
going. And yeah, let's, as we
This is the
move on
time.
over the
Now's
course
the
of these
time.
years, I think those are good considerations.
I just
to
think we
have.
need to be careful, though. I'd hate to be the public works director who has the people come up to you and say, how come they got the wide street and I got the narrow street?
I don't know anybody who's thankful for the wide street. They're all like, what happened on my street?
How about why did I get the
You don't talk to a lot of people, do you,
parking,
Mayor?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Have you ever been down to Beamy Street? Go down Beamy Street. Yeah.
Well, I will say this. One thing I did ask to do is this, because here's what ends up happening. A street gets widened, or it stays narrow, whatever the case, everybody complains after the fact. And none of them responded to the public open house. And so I did ask that we also do a greater effort with door hangers and be a little more aggressive on informing people when these public hearings are, and making it very clear and if we need to, do some better graphics, because a lot of times if it's just an orange door hanger with some verbiage, people, it may need to take another step, right? We may need to work with Amanda a little bit and have some this is your streetscape, this is the future of your street. If you want to say, you need to come in. And so I want to make sure that people do have a say jar. So if you got that oh man, it makes sense for wide, everybody parks here for St. Joseph's drop off, it's a nightmare. And if this street makes sense to be a little wider so that can, and then you can have that input from the residents. So it was one of the number one things I said is make sure we do everything we can to make sure these folks show up. And if they don't, there's something we can do, but at least we're making as best of an effort as possible to let people know the importance of showing up to these open house meetings.
Yeah, but you have to also understand that if somebody shows up at that meeting and the job is already designed, it's very difficult to accept that homeowner's opinion and say, wait, I wanted a wide street, and you're giving me this narrow one, and you go, oh, too bad, we designed it narrow. I mean, you could say all you want about people having a say in what they're gonna get, but,
Well,
I mean,
obviously
it
bringing
almost-
them in after the fact is not
Right.
appropriate. This is about, as we're doing phase 2 design, as we're working on designs, I think, as JR is mentioning, if I'm hearing it right, is make sure we get people in an opportunity where their say actually can be implemented.
Certainly.
Yeah, I believe we can set our standards, say, hey, we want 4th Street to be this wide, we want 6th Street to be this wide. I mean, if we want to set patterns or whatever, then we can go with that direction. But just to say, change it street by, I mean, it just seems to be very, I don't know, hodgepodge, and I think we need to have some kind of consistency when we're doing this.
Hey, JR, this is really your area. I'm sure you're an expert at it. Is there any way you can kind of go street by street and say they all need to be widened? Or, no, I'm just saying you're an expert of this area. No, I'm just, because you know that area better than we do.
No, but I love the parts that are downtown. I know what it means
Right,
to be
right.
on a narrow street. But I also listen to a person who says, I can't park my car there. I mean, who
Yeah,
complains
that's what
that two
I'm
cars
saying.
can't
Yeah.
go back and forth? But
And I've seen that when I've tried working traffic. I was like, oh my
I'm not
gosh.
I am not a design engineer.
No, but you know, like where the traffic flow is. Not every street has that much traffic flow. Certain streets are main arteries. You know that.
Well, usually if there's stop signs on them, people aren't on those streets. If, like 2nd Street, they're up and down 2nd because there's not a stop sign on it. So I know the other streets that way, but.
That's a good point, though.
All right, so let me try to sum this up. As we move forward, let's make sure we do the open house invites for people before things are designed, before it's too late to have an opinion. I think it's very valid. Otherwise, what's the point? You're just telling them, here's what's coming, take it. So let's make sure we get it out. And I still think it's a unique place, unique neighborhoods, considerations. It's not just cookie cut. So we can address it in its unique situations as we go.
Okay,
All right.
good, thank you.
All right, what's that?
Oh, yep. AT.
Yeah, we got our AT2, our gaming. So, let me try to sum up a couple things on this as we go into the gaming. I know we've been talking about it for a few meetings now. I had 2 points, and I think Sonny's done a good job trying to coalesce 9 different people's thoughts and opinions, and so I think we have we're getting our document is tighter and tighter each time, so I appreciate all your hard work, Sonny. 2 points of contentions that have been brought up to me that I'll just get right into. One concern that's been brought up to me is that for the existing businesses, that will have to come into compliance. So if our compliance is to have screened rooms, if you have a restaurant where there's, people of all ages are able to go into, how do we screen the rooms? It's easy if any new businesses have to have that, they can build it out as such. The concern is existing ones. How do they, maybe their floor plan wasn't set up to have a full room, how are they gonna work that? Here's a thought I have as far as that concern goes for the existing businesses that will have to come into compliance, is that knowing that what we're asking for is a fully screened room, that if a business has to come into compliance and they're seeing, okay, this is going to be problematic for me because of my floor space, they can appeal to the gaming commission. They say, look, here's the problem. I've got this much space, and if I'm going to come into compliance, it's going to cost me this much money to do so, that they can appeal to the gaming commission for the issue. And this is just talking out loud here, is that in order to bring those businesses into compliance, I'd be willing to allow, like we have a facade grant, is to use the gaming revenues to be able to help offset the cost to bring I think we're only talking about 5 or 6 of these places that are going to be problematic. Is that if we use the gaming revenues that we have to help them come into compliance, to build out the walls or build out whatever, that's just something. After they appeal to the gaming commission with their floor plans, with the clear cost of what it's going to be, and then they can apply for the grant out of the Gaming Commission money to come into compliance. Just a thought for you guys. What do you think of that?
Well, if we were to do that, then we would have to go ahead and amend our code compliance grant, because that's really essentially what it would be, a code compliance grant. So
Well,
I don't have any
it
problem
could
with
be
that.
actually drafted into the current ordinance that the compliance period within within the year, the Video Gaming Commission would have the ability to, accept the application for the compliance purposes. We don't necessarily have to amend the code compliance
Okay.
ordinance. It could be written into this current ordinance.
Because it's clear, we're coming up with rules after the fact. People have already set up their businesses as they are, and it's like, oh my God, now I got to spend, $5,000 or $20,000 or whatever it's going to cost to do this. This is just my recommendation is we allow the money out of the gaming revenues to help that. And then once everybody's in compliance, then we're done. We don't have to deal with it in the future. Anybody who comes in new, if there's an available license, then it's on their obligation to take care of it. Does anybody feel okay with that, or is there concern with doing it that way?
And how much do you think you would be allowing for that?
Well, you know what, I really don't know what it's gonna be. I've mentioned some people, it's just gonna be a couple walls and some drywall, and, it may not be that much. There may be other costs. I think that's where, they have to appeal to the Gaming Commission to make their case. It's like, hey, look, this is a $40,000 fix, it's like, okay. Now, we can either say, we'll limit the money and say, look, it's a maximum of $10,000, or it's a matching grant like we do for facades. We can all debate that, how we would want that. If we like the general idea of it, now we can hammer out details of how that could work. Do we want to put a maximum cap on that? Do we want to do matching grants? If it's a $10,000 price tag, we put in, like we do
The
facades.
license application fees that are going to go up and the annual license fee, that has not been restricted yet, so that could be used for that compliance. The actual video gaming revenue, the resolution that restricts it to only downtown improvement would have to be amended to include that. Because if we're talking about establishments outside of the downtown area that need the funding,
Right.
but I would suggest a cap.
Yeah, I wouldn't go over 20,000. And I'm not sure if you need to overcomplicate the grant procedure because you're having a limited number that is finite, and there's only the ones that are existing that would maybe get this grant.
Right.
And once they're on the compliance, you really don't need the grant program anymore.
Correct.
But you could have, the administrator could administer it up to $20,000 through my discretion and bring a report to the council to approve, or, I'm not sure we have to.
Yeah, we don't need to overcomplicate it. It'll be written into the ordinance
But
itself.
it would also be nice if we could have them apply, we'll go through the gaming commission to decide kind of what's being done and what's warranted or not, and then have them request that money, and then we can budget for it and use the gaming funds or the revenues to do it in the following fiscal year or something, but.
So how, I'm a little confused that we're helping them build something that they're really responsible for.
The gaming industry has paid for them, I guess I've been told, in a few of these situations. I don't know if, if it's a hardship case or not.
I don't know why the city has to be obligated to dish out money that, we could use to
Sure.
use for the benefit of everyone, not just say, a few. I don't know,
It's fair, I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I agree with Joanne.
However, though, now you have to come up with what's fair for everyone. One person can't get more because it's gonna cost them more to do it than someone else. A cap definitely has to be decided on. But I don't know that I'm okay with spending money that the city could use to benefit someone or everyone in the
Because
city.
they will make money off of that area, so that's their choice if they want to give up seating for gaming, right? And there's a benefit to them for that.
Right, but as a city, we're getting more benefit by the exterior building looking pretty versus an interior building for gaming. I kind of agree with Joanne here. I don't know why we'd want to give that up to, make that place there. Those businesses that have it are making money on it.
My question to both of you is, do you understand how the video gaming revenue is used? It's either yes, you do, or no, you don't.
Well, just, why don't you get your, just get to your point,
So
man.
the point is, okay, this money being generated is to be used for downtown renovations. And if a building is downtown and it's gonna be used to renovate a building,
It's an inside building, though, is what this money's gonna be used for, not the exterior for the appearance of the building.
we have a code compliance grant that is used for the inside of the building, which is paid for out of this
Not what
revenue.
this-
This is non-property tax revenue. This is non-sales tax revenue. This is choice revenue by people that choose to go ahead and play the games.
So, hold on, Darren, let me,
I really don't understand what the objection is.
wait a minute, I have a question.
This is money that the city could be using for someone else who needs some exterior
Who
work.
is someone else?
Another business coming in or is already here. It doesn't matter. It's money that was going to be used to bring up the appearance of the downtown area.
So,
Interior.
because I have a question, and maybe Darren, you can answer this. The money, because we really haven't spent a lot of this gaming money yet, it's been building up, which is good, because I think we have a couple projects, but how is it allowed to be used? I know it's supposed to be designated downtown, but is it designated downtown only on exteriors? Can it be anything downtown? Can it be?
Well, it's
read-
more than
yeah.
downtown. We actually had this debate a year or two ago where we expanded it from downtown and on 9th Street all the way up to.
That's a facade grant.
That was a
though.
facade grant.
That's a
Facade grants.
facade grant.
Yeah, yeah.
But the actual resolution that ties the revenue specifically states redevelopment of the downtown area. That's what the
Town
resolution,
improvement fund.
yeah, improvement funds. And that's why we've used it for some of the improvements downtown, like the planters or other objects, but, yeah, exterior, yes. But the code compliance funding is different from the actual resolution that restricts the video gaming to only downtown redevelopment or improvement projects.
Okay.
And it's pretty, that's as generic as the resolution is stated. It doesn't say what grant it funds, what compliance code it funds. It specifically is limited to redevelopment or improvement of the downtown area.
Okay, so it's a little, it could go interior, exterior, it's a little vague. Okay. All right, I just was curious, because, like I said,
But there's also other sidewalks we haven't done downtown. The whole downtown's not done yet. We started a project trying to make the downtown appearance look a certain way. I'd rather spend it toward making the rest of downtown look consistent then.
Yeah, so, just, like I said, just an idea. So I would, just taking a straw poll here, Joanne and Catherine, you guys feel like just, it's their problem, deal with it? I don't mean to say it meanly. It's, if they want to continue with gaming, then they need to come into compliance at their own time. And it's not like, it's not making money, right, for them, so, okay.
Well, and I believe, isn't it my understanding that the Gaming Commission is helping some of them out?
A lot of times they do.
So I think that rather than offering it all up front and saying, hey, we're gonna have this program,
Mm-hmm.
we say, we would like you to get in compliance, because that's what the new people are gonna have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the Gaming Commission and see, and we may have to treat each existing one a little individually, because they are all individual, and we are kind of changing the game
Mm-hmm.
after it's already started. So I think we have to kind of be fair and weigh it out on both sides.
So I'm sorry, Renee, clarify then, you think having some sort of help out of the revenues that are generated from the gaming should, or go back?
For the existing ones. If in
For the
fact they
existing.
go to the Gaming Commission, they won't help them at all. I don't think it's a bad thing for us to offer them something, again.
You mean if the,
per business.
if the video gaming industry doesn't provide it, like someone who
Right.
supplies the machine, doesn't put the money in to say, hey, maybe we'll run, I mean, it's actually in their best interest to
Right.
get in compliance, so they're the ones with the big money. So they probably want to have the games there, so
So if they go to them and say, we can't afford to get in compliance, are you gonna,
they will,
step
they
up
would
and-
do a lot of
Why you
things
stay
to
there,
help
right.
that
So I
machine.
think they should go to them first and exhaust that.
Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought you meant they should go to them first.
Right.
And really, it should, to me, the buck should stop there. If the gaming industry wants them to have it, they should then dish out the money. It should
Totally
be a city's responsibility, in my opinion.
Okay. So you're, just again, that you're with Catherine and Joanne. Let them handle it if they want to deal with it with the gaming industry.
I still think I'm not.
Okay, you're on the other side. Okay, I'm just trying to take a straw poll.
If they don't help, if they don't help them out, we've allowed them to have them. We can't just say, well, we've changed our rules.
Yeah.
I think that's not fair. They've already got them.
Okay, all right. So we're just trying to help everybody come into compliance. It's if we're trying to right a ship here, and it's like, okay, how do we do with it? We can help a little bit here. Okay, and again, I'm just trying to get the concept. Perhaps, like I think Sonny, you alluded, like perhaps with our new fees, right, which is going to amount to about $3,500. Maybe you get a one-time use of $3,500. You keep those fees for the first year and put it towards coming into compliance. That could be a. What is it? Per building. So a user. So in other words, hey, you guys can keep your fees this first year to come into compliance to $3,500 and apply it to that. I don't know. I'm just talking out loud. Okay. So, anyways, Renee, you're yes. Let's help.
I'm a no.
No. Okay. Christina says no. Jay, what do you got thought on this?
Yeah, I believe we should help.
Okay.
My problem is we're not professional architects. I don't think the commission that we put together is architects either, and we don't know exactly what we're telling these people they need to do. I've seen a lot of property brothers, and next thing you know, it could be a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 extra. I mean, depending on a commission who doesn't know what, they just want it to look pretty or something, might be a pretty big expense. So I think I would hope that the vending companies would help out first, but I believe the ones that are existing, yes, they should be able to use the funds to help out. I mean, but I'm okay with capping it at, 10 or 20,000, whatever we feel would be a better cap.
Okay. Darren, where you at on this?
I don't understand Renee's. Okay, you agree that we should help, or you disagree that we should help?
I do agree that we should help. I
Okay.
think that they should. I think they should.
And Christina, I didn't understand yours.
Disagree.
That we should help.
No,
Not help.
We should not help. Okay. Well, I am of the opinion that we should.
Okay. All righty. You got any thoughts on this, Mark?
Just a yes with restrictions,
Okay.
including a cap.
Okay. Obviously Larry's not here, but at the moment it's 4 yeses and three noes. I mean, I'm partial to it myself. I feel like this is something that's grown and we're trying to get a handle on it. I don't really have a problem. I mean, to me, the gaming money, it's not taxpayer money. It's generated by these places. I don't really have a problem helping in this first year for them to come into compliance in some fashion. JR's correct in pointing out that, when I say it should go to the Gaming Commission, I think that's where the appeal should come from. That's where the first says, hey, look, here's the plans. We know what you want. You want a full room, right? So here's what I have to do in order to make that happen. They go to the Gaming Commission, so that's just kind of the first step. And if it looks like it takes into either okay, you guys have a full room here, or okay, I see where you got to fudge it a bit because of the particular layout that you have. We as the Gaming Commission can live with that fudging, whatever. I think that gives them the opportunity. And then from there, it's like, okay, here's your grant application.
You could develop that later. I wouldn't gift back the fees that they need to pay in January. Let them pay those and then find out who needs help or not, and then you have the money to orchestrate back.
All right.
Because this only applies to someone who holds a
Existing.
C or a J.
Yeah, it's actually not
So
any of the
it-
bars
yeah,
or
it
any of the
doesn't
21
apply
or
to
over
bars.
establishments.
It doesn't apply to people with As and Bs.
And there's some people I know already comply, like, the Villanova Pizza, it's already in a room, basically. So, I mean, there's a lot of these, Embers already complies. It's not going to be everybody. And ultimately, we're talking probably about 3 or 4 people that we have to
We can
help.
budget for the fees, and then we can develop a program to administer some back if you decide to later.
All right. Well, then, it sounds like everybody seems to agree on some sort of cap, so I'm just only throwing 10,000 out, just in line with what our facade grant has been, right? I don't really have a problem with that. So if Sonny, if you can kind of coalesce it. I don't want to keep talking about this forever, so I think if we could probably go to a vote next, an action item next time after, if we feel like we iron everything else out here that we want to talk about today.
Yeah, unless there's any questions regarding what's been,
Yeah, so I'm hoping that, Sonny, if you can write it out, we all take a look at it over the next 2 weeks,
Okay.
and then we should be able to, I think, iron it out in time to vote on it, if that seems okay.
Sonny, I'm sorry, I sent the email.
oh,
kind of
yes,
last
I
minute.
do want to point that out.
Okay.
You did bring up the question regarding
Like-
advertisement.
Like the flags.
Yes,
that
the
say
flags,
slots.
yes.
Can we somehow write that in that they got to get rid of that?
And that was just, when I was revising it, that may have been accidentally erased or deleted, but it was in the first version, yes. The first version had language that the location, size, and lighting of signs advertising or promoting video gaming or video gaming machines must be approved by the mayor or the Video Gaming Commission prior to posting or to be allowed to remain on. So, I mean, if that's a consensus that the members of the city council want some type of approval process for the signs, it could be the flag signs that you see.
I just don't even think those flag signs should be out there at all. It's like, terrible.
I agree. They're nasty.
Yeah, I would just have
No signs.
So I will put
You know-
that back in, the draft that I present at the next council
One
meeting.
on the window or,
It could include the windows. It includes a location. So if it's like, you're in a highly visible area in a or historic area, you don't want to see that flashing signs out there, yeah. So.
okay.
I do have a question. Was this in regards to also gaming and truck stops? Or no?
Yeah, that was, are you talking about the signs or?
No, in the same code for gaming terminal licensing. Are we still on A2-2, or AT-2?
Yes, we are, in the specific question regarding truck stop.
Yeah, is there a way we can, I don't really want gaming in truck stops. If Homer Glenn says no, can we take a vote on that, just at least so I have a vote instead of it being consent on that part?
As written, if the truck stop did come in, and they're not required to have a pour license, they will still have to go through the approval process. They would have to submit an application to the mayor. If the mayor does a preliminary denial, they would go to the Video Gaming Commission and, ultimately get approved or denied.
how does that affect us if it's in Homer Glen?
No, Homer Glen does not allow it, but I'm saying if it comes to Lockport, I don't want it either, is what I'm
I
asking.
think what you're asking, Catherine, is that if it's
My
allowed in
vote-
truck stops, you don't necessarily want to vote against this whole ordinance, but you'd like to voice your concern or peel that off so you could vote no on that? Is
Just that specific part, yeah.
It's probably going to end up being voicing your concern, I think.
Well,
I would like to officially say I don't approve of the gaming thing, but I think I'm okay with the rest of it, so, yeah, I don't know how you peel that out, man.
That's why I'm asking, I'm sorry.
Well, the truck stops themselves.
On this one.
Yeah, again, you can, if that's a consensus of the members of the city council that you specifically want to eliminate the truck stop. For the truck stop, they actually have to be pretty big in size, at least 3 acres or more. They would have to
Sell a
have.
certain amount of
Yeah,
gallons
so
of fuel.
they would have to
and
diesel.
I would just
so-
address it as those petitions come in.
Yeah,
That's the
and that's
appropriate time.
another layer of approval process, is that when someone comes in and wants to develop a big area into
they're
a
gonna
truck
ask
stop,
for it.
that would
I
be.
mean, we don't have it yet, so, but I'm just saying that,
And I don't really see why there would be any reason why not to have them in the truck stop. I don't know.
We've had conversations with developers already about it.
Well, I'll put it this way. For me, I think you guys are all pretty familiar with my opinion. I don't like the gaming at all. But in order to try to compromise, I've been open to, okay, if there's this kind of development comes in, we can leave it in there, right? This is just my way of trying to work together on it. Even though I don't personally like it at a truck stop either, if that's what it takes to move forward and get our rules and have a good compromise here with our council, I was willing to leave it in. So that's kind of where I've been approaching this part.
And we're gonna have a cap on all of the locations that it can be anyway.
Yeah, so,
If we max out, then
yeah. Well, yeah, so, and that's the other thing. So if we have an 18 unit, or 18 business establishments can have a license.
Yes.
Here's kind of the way I've also tried to compromise with it, is that if we draw the line at 18, okay, then there was concern about, like, well, what if this magical place comes in that just has to have gaming and we all want it and there's no available gaming licenses? That I tried to look at how can we make it so that everybody feels comfortable that there's still an option. If, just kind of, this now I'm just kind of recapping, if, you know, the mayor, me, future mayors give an initial no, then they just simply appeal to the gaming commission, and even if the gaming commission says, it's kind of like going to planning and zoning, right? Planning and zoning might deny something, but there's been times when we've overridden that and said, no, it's okay. So then they can go and come to before council and say, look, these guys are looking to extend our licenses from 18 and bring it up to 19, and if it's, you know, a use that everybody feels strongly for, it can be done. We have a venue, and we've done it, right? I mean, when I came on board, we didn't have any more liquor licenses, but when Stagecoach, or when Embers, or when now the new Tangled Roots, or when Mod Pizza, or when Chipotle, or when La Mexicana, all these people that have come to us, we've increased the liquor licenses. We've looked at each one of those businesses and said, you know what, that's okay, let's increase it. But it's not just a free-for-all, and there's a process of oversight so that it's just not ultimately, and this was one of the concerns I had, it was that it's not just up to one person. In the past was me, which is like, no liquor license for you. This allows a more, I think, fair process, and allows everyone to have more voice and to be part of this process. And so that's kind of where we've been with it. So, do you have any? I'll stop talking now.
So if there were any other comments regarding the draft 2, if
Well,
not.
didn't you have two?
Oh, yeah, so the other one was for what establishments can apply in the future for it. What businesses, what liquor licenses can open that? So if there's a restaurant that seems to be, like I said, something we all feel like our citizens are dying for and we can't live without, can a restaurant apply for it? Currently, the way we have it written out, it's like only a tavern can. There was a request to add the C license to that, so that there is that possibility that a restaurant could either apply for a future license if we wanted to grant it, or the other option too is this: if one of the businesses that exists now that has a gaming license either goes out of business or chooses to let go of their license because they have 5-year contracts, if at the end of the 5 years they don't want it, then we have an available gaming license that somebody could apply for. The request was to be clear that a restaurant user could apply for that gaming license. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this actually came from me, and it came from bullet point number 3 on page 1 of the memo, where it says, any new video gaming terminal operator license will have to be a tavern A or B class, or a truck stop, or a large truck stop as defined by the Video Gaming Act. And my objection was the limitation to class A or B. We haven't given out a class A or B liquor license in I don't know how many dozens of years, okay? And so what this immediately, when it says any new, it means, okay, we're restricting, okay? Which means that anything such as if in the effect that somebody was to go ahead and buy the hole down there on State Street, and they were to go build a 3-story building, and they would have maybe 3 restaurants or whatever within there, and if should they choose, and they would have what we would currently have them as a C2 license, this would prohibit them, okay? And my objection to the whole language was, we did not discuss this at the last meeting, okay? Not one, this never came up. The discussion was all about C1 licenses, the Villanova, the Georges, the the Anthony's, and we did not discuss this. So I was very disappointed to see bullet point number 3, because we never discussed it. And so I think that the C2s, which is basically what we are, you know, it seems to be the classification that we're seeing now.
It would be both C1 and C2.
Well, C1 and C2, okay. Nobody, you know, the Stellas and the Jackies and the Shooters, those types of establishments, which would have the A or B class licenses, those type of businesses don't open up anymore. So basically, what it would be here is as of January 1st, if we don't go ahead and actually correct the language to what we actually discussed at the last meeting, then basically is we were put a moratorium on an expansion of video gaming, which has been my objection for the past 6 weeks or so. So,
All right, so let me put it this way. Let's say we remove the AB tavern licenses, because quite frankly, you're right, we haven't given a license like that in years, and that, if they're available for those kind of classes, it might only encourage that kind of use to come and seek one. I would just remove both of those, that they don't qualify for new tavern licenses that are just bars that want gaming, and we put a C in there instead. If you want a restaurant, because if that seems to be, you know, well, what if there's this very, you know, great place, we could do it that way.
I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with, you know, should Stella's or Jackie's, they go ahead and they're going to sell sometime in the future, okay? And if somebody wishes to have a liquor license, okay, I would say the only type of liquor licenses we're to have available are C1s or C2s, okay?
That way they have to have a restaurant. If
Yeah,
they're
that
going to
means- that
sell,
means
it's like,
they-
understand that you're going to have to become,
That means they have to have a restaurant then.
okay, I could live with that. How do you guys feel?
What does grapes and hops fall under, Sonny? Is that the J1?
Grapes and hops are they specifically wanted a tavern license. They're, I believe, at A2. I don't think they've shown interest in video gaming.
They didn't want it anyway.
Yeah,
I did
they
ask them,
never
they said they have no
requested it, yeah.
desire for it, so that
So-
works. Okay. Okay. We good?
Are there, like grapes and hops, is there anybody who is in A1 that is, that correctly categorized?
That we want, I didn't,
Yeah, I would say, like, for instance, Rocco's has a C license, even though I don't know of anybody who thinks of it as a restaurant, right? So it's pretty much a bar. But I believe that we ended up doing that when we annexed them, because it's like we hadn't given out a straight bar license in years, so we just said, okay, we'll give you the C license. So it's kind of like, okay, now we're here in this place where actually they should have been classified as a bar. Personally, for me, I think ultimately, when Rocco's is done, they're going to sell it to, no, I don't see anybody buying Rocco's to make it, to continue Rocco's. It's in that whole development area where that whole area is going to get redeveloped. So I don't see it becoming the Roadhouse.
License or whatever doesn't go with the new owner, correct?
That's correct. Anybody would have to apply for it anyway. And,
Those are all grandfathered in.
yeah, that's true. So anyways, maybe it's like, it's not necessarily something to worry about, because anybody who's going to buy and apply for a liquor license anew has to apply for it. It's just not like, there's no liquor license that just carries over to anybody, so. Okay. So do we feel like we have a consensus then on our language?
I think there's still a lot of clarification because it's getting very confusing with all
this
these
is
licenses.
like, the third draft.
Right.
I will be presenting the
You know,
third,
the
yeah.
whole
Yeah.
point is we want to get this done before January 1st. We have 7 more meetings until then. Okay? So
It'll take 7 meetings
I would
for us to all
much rather,
understand
I'd
what
much
this-
rather look at another 2 or 3 drafts and continue to improve it
Yeah.
than to go ahead and pass something just because, well, let's get it done in 2 weeks just because.
Right, no, I think this is too important for the city we need to have our eggs
Yeah,
in a row.
we don't have to
Do the whole
do
one
it
more
next, in 2 weeks. We could do it in 3 more meetings.
Okay, so
fine.
let's iron all the language out, Sonny. And then, so we all say, this is 100%, there's no more discussion, we're done, and we can vote
I
it.
just need one more, just a little bit clarification on the elimination of the A and B. Why would we eliminate A and B? Even though
yeah.
even though we're not issuing those, why would we eliminate them for any possible future?
Yeah, it's just, I think since long before any of our time up here, it's, when they stopped giving out tavern licenses and just straight bars, it's because it's kind of an old school thing, right? It's the old just pure drinking establishments. One of the things Chicago did years ago was there's no more bars, right? You got to have food components in these things. These were kind of leftover relics from, the 70s and the 60s where you just go and drink and for nothing, no other reason just to drink. And so I think most communities, ours included, decided let's stop making those licenses so that we can no longer so they can phase out over time or convert themselves into places that serve food that is more inclusive for the community as opposed to just a drinking establishment. So to put them on there really is almost kind of meaningless, right? It's something that council before us and even before us have decided it's time for those to phase out. So why even put them on there? Let's just do with what the concern is. Because the one concern I had from people that on this council that were, hesitant about the restrictions was like, we need to feel like there's still an option if there's this, this fantastic sea restaurant that they have a venue. And so, okay, that's fine. That's why we'll leave it. It really didn't have a lot to do with the A and B. I think just as Sonny's been trying to filter through all 9 of our comments, that's just what you put down there for us to consider, thinking that that's where we're going with it. So
does that mean, just to clarify, so Jackie could never sell to anybody else?
she can, but even because we don't create new J licenses,
That would have to be
it's
a
like,
food.
it's time to bring in whoever your new owner is going to be. Make sure you put a little kitchenette back there and let's start serving food, so that's generally the way things go. So, correct. Anything else? Okay, then let's, I guess that's everything for today. So, if there's nothing else, any new business? Any open floor comments? May I anything? Yep, Joe.
Joe Gallus with the Stagecoach Saloon. I agree with pretty much everything everybody said tonight. The only thing that I need some clarification on, because we are one of there's only 5 restaurants that this affects with the gaming as far as the new screening and all that. There's 6, but there's 6 of them total, but there's 5 that don't have screening around their rooms right now, I being one of them. I have no problem with screening my games, but I wish I would have been told that 6 months ago. I would have built it in my design. I just put almost $500,000 into that building. And right now, for me to build rooms and screen my games that are just, you don't see them unless you're going to the bathroom, the ones in the back. Those are the ones that I don't have the space to build rooms around. I don't have all my product on my walls is reclaimed lumber, stuff like that. I can't just go to the store and buy more of it. So for me to move walls and do all that, it's not even about the money. It's just I physically, I don't have the space. Like, it just doesn't fit with my design. So I just encourage you guys. I mean, there's only 5 people that it actually affects. It affects me, the Outpost, Paradise Bay, Rocco's, and the Stagecoach. Those are the only ones that it affects. I don't see why, because it's only 5, that it's not just grandfathered in, and it would make life way easier with this giving money back and more grants and everything else. I don't see why one of the bullet points on the new proposal, Penny's is exempt from everything, which is the #1 thing that we're all trying to rid the city of, is video gaming cafes. But now one of the bullet points on there is They're exempt from everything. Which, how are they exempt from everything when we're not? Now we have to comply. And I would have done that if this was 6 months ago. I would have absolutely built a room, whatever. My drawings, if someone would have looked at them and said, hey, listen, you have to build a room. Absolutely. And now we're talking about money, and everyone's like, well, you're kind of on your own. Well, we just did a new building code change. What if we told everybody, all right, we just upgraded the building code, and now everybody's got 6 months to comply? That's just, it doesn't seem fair to me.
So, Joe, have you thought about going to the gaming commission, department and ask for help due to the fact that this is something that now has become an issue?
Help how?
Well, I understand there's apparently assistance through the gaming industry.
I'm not talking about money. That's what I'm not getting at. Like, you got a place like Paradise Bay.
You're saying just the space you can't
It
do
just
anymore.
doesn't work to move walls around and everything with I don't have the materials.
But is it-
I don't want to go back under construction again. I just put all this money. It just doesn't seem fair to me. Ultimately, yeah, I can tear the whole restaurant apart and remodel it, but I don't, it doesn't feel right to me to have to do that after I literally just opened 3 months ago.
Wouldn't the gaming commission be, I'm sorry.
Exactly,
Wouldn't
that's,
the gaming commission be able to take these on a case-by-case basis?
That's what
You could
I
add
was
one
gonna say,
panel above
yeah.
Joe's wall, and you put a panel there. He might be within compliance enough based on square footage and all that kind of stuff.
I have a
Once
wall.
again, isn't that the gaming industry
That's
that
where I
has
thought we were
to-
going.
oh,
I'm
no,
not
the
sure
ga-
where-
our board.
Gaming
Lockport.
board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joanne, I'm in compliance with the gaming commission right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Lockport
talking
Gaming
the
Commission.
new codes and the new
I
things.
see, okay, gotcha.
I wouldn't be in compliance with that.
Okay.
I have a wall right now that barricades off my 3 games in the rear, and I could even build something on top of that wall higher, so you wouldn't even see the back of them.
I think the
Right.
ordinance
Very
as
nice.
currently written doesn't require a separate room. It
Yeah, I
just
think that's an
requires
interpretation.
the
It's the
machines to be
screening, it doesn't have to have
covered.
a ceiling,
And so as long as it's not viewable, obviously, the Video Gaming Commission will look at the plan and could determine
Situation.
if there's a hardship that,
Insurmountable?
yeah, I mean,
I
it could
think
be
that's
just
all.
like any other zoning
I think that's all
regulation.
possible, and I think even appropriate. Quite frankly, it was one of the reasons we even started having this conversation, Joe, was when I walked in and there were games in my face, right? And so it's exactly what's like, okay, this is out of control. We got to handle this somehow. Because you're right. It's like I didn't even think about you were going to put games like in the entryway.
Well, those weren't,
So
those are getting moved
yeah.
regardless.
And then, one of the things
Be there.
I even, requested was, do you use your other entrance? It's something you didn't want to do. So I've tried to work with you up until now. We've even talked about helping with money, everything else. It's just a matter of, and you're right, Penny's, it is exempt because it's a 21 and over establishment. You're an establishment where kids come in and whole families come in, and so that's why we've been looking at it differently. It's correct. Coombs Corner or Rocco's or anything, Rocco's is essentially a bar, right? We all know it's a bar. There's
is.
nobody going in there, it's 21 and
License
under.
the same as me.
It is, and that's like I said, it's a reason why it happened, and it really shouldn't have happened, we just didn't give any J's. But we all know the practicality of it, nobody's going in there with their kids to have a burger, so it's a bar. So just trying to look at things for exactly what they are, it's what it is. Do I think the Gaming Commission can have some autonomy to look at things and say, okay, if you're putting it over there in the front behind a curtain, I think that's part of why we want to have a civilian oversight, right? We wanted to have 3 people that aren't part of this council, so they're not up here, worried about, they're not accountable to, directly to, but they can be independent and give their recommendations. I don't really particularly have a problem if a gaming commission does give recommendations for specific problems, that it gets part of why we have a commission. Otherwise, we wouldn't need it. It would just be, these are the rules, that there's no dialogue beyond that. So I don't have a problem if the gaming commission looks at these things myself, but
Mayor, I just want to mention, it's good that we're stepping up and taking responsibility and doing what we can as a city. But eventually, Joe, there will be a family that will come in and be very angry that they're coming into an establishment where there's gaming. Okay, it may not.
Here's what happens. It's not that
It's gonna happen.
They
It's
just
gonna happen.
here's my everybody I ever talked to. Here's what ends up happening. They go in and it's like, oh, this is a great place. I heard about it. And it's like they see the gaming. If they don't like it, I don't find that they make judgment calls. I don't find that they're like, I'm angry. They just never go back again.
Well,
And so that's really what ends up happening.
But then word of mouth and
Right, it becomes-
bad-mouthing and stuff, you know, I think it's good that we're trying to do something so that your establishment doesn't get a bad name, because people do exaggerate. And they'll say, oh my goodness, you know, there's gambling and my kids were exposed to that and blah, blah, blah. So that will happen.
And ultimately, that is the choice of the business owner. I think it's
You say that, and I respect your opinion, but I don't. How would gaming make your business have a bad name when you have no problem with the kids walking past 80 bottles of alcohol that they can
Yeah,
look
look,
at?
Joe, I'm not going to tell you that there's not hypocrisy in it, and it's going to be the same thing when we talk about when we talk about recreational marijuana, right? And so it's all going to be, you know, we're going to have that same conversation. It's like, oh, how could you be against marijuana when you're for alcohol? It's like, you know what? Because there's times when we just draw lines, right? We accept in society that, you know, we tried to do prohibition, it didn't work out, right? So, but it doesn't mean let's let Oxycontin and heroin and cocaine, let's just go all out, right? So we all draw lines as a society. And you're right, Joe, we draw lines about like, okay, we're going to go into a place where there's alcohol. We've all drawn lines, and it doesn't, we don't live in a society where there's complete inability for hypocrisy. We all do it. It is what it is. I just find that nobody goes in there, just my experience with talking to people is like, I don't really like it, I just don't go back there. And so then my counsel has always been, when people have asked me these kinds of things, hey, can I have gaming? And I'm not talking to you, Joe, I'm talking about other people that have asked for liquor licenses so that they can have gaming. I'm like, look, man, I think you're making a bad choice. And back in the day when it was totally my discretion, JR, liquor license, yes or no, I could kill it. Now we have opportunities for people beyond just me to make the decision. But in the past, when I said no liquor license because I think it is a bad idea, right? I'm not going to give you a liquor license if you're going to put the gaming in there. I think you're going to think, oh, I'm going to make some money and it's going to look like good revenue, but ultimately I think it kills your brand, right? That's just my take on it. I've had some restaurateurs tell me I absolutely agree. Scott Strutchen, who's opening up Tangled Roots. I said, are you guys looking for gaming? He goes, Mayor, I've opened 20 restaurants in my career in Chicago. I would never put gaming in it. I think it's tacky, and I think it hurts the brand of the restaurant. We focus on our food. That's fine. That's the decisions that they make from people who've had restaurants, multiple restaurants. The other guy who lives in town here, Josh, he runs the Harry Carey's. He manages it. Said the same thing, right? So it does affect the brand. I can't talk somebody out of it, right? If they're bent on doing it, it is what it is. But that's just the nature of it. It's not that there's anything beyond that. So anyways, I think ultimately our commission can take into consideration any kind of hardships. We're certainly I think we have a consensus about providing some funding to help offset it. But noted, Joe. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. If you could repeat which 5 businesses that was? You said
It's probably-
Paradise
yeah.
Bay, Rocco, Stagecoach. I know, I just want to write it
It's
down.
Coombs Corner,
Coombs Corner, okay.
Outpost,
And
Paradise
Outpost,
Bay,
okay, that was what I was missing.
Rocco's, and us.
Yeah,
And
'cause
I
I
agree
want-
with you, Mary, you gotta draw a line somewhere, but all I'm asking is for you to give some consideration that you should have drawn the line 6 months ago, and I don't have to remodel my brandly new remodeled restaurant already.
Well, and that's what I want to do. I want to go see those 5 businesses just to see. Maybe it's not as bad. I mean, I'm going to admit, I just want to see it.
Existing.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. All right, anybody else?
Don't you think that's...
All right, then we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, I heard Renee and seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. You guys need a break, or you want to jump into it?
I mean, because
All right.
you've been in here.
Let's take 5.
I've never been in there. So I'm like, might as well go see them.
crew, we have an unusual circumstance here tonight. So Kathy's computer decided to just update, right? So this could take 10 minutes, it could take an hour, we have no idea. So one thought here was, while it's doing that, we just start our meeting, do our roll call, but immediately do our executive session, because we had to do one tonight, so we can just go adjourn into the other room while her computer continues to be difficult. Okay. So are we okay with that idea? Is it okay? Good, good. All right, so Kathy, can we do a roll call for a city council meeting?
Yes, roll call. Saban? Present. Shriver is absent. Bergbauer?
Present.
Galogly?
Here.
Deskin?
Here.
Lobes?
Here.
Bartleson? Here. And Paretta?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay.
And just for the record, the executive session will be under 2C5, purchase or lease of real property, including meeting held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired and setting the price of the sale or lease of that property.
Okay, so looking for a motion to go into executive session? Okay, we go.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so Mark and Joanne, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
back on the record.
Okay. We're all good.
We're back on the record.
All right, so, City Council, so I'm looking for a motion to have a consent agenda this evening. I just heard noises. So Renee, and who seconded? Joanne. All in favor? Aye. Okay. We have regular City Council meeting minutes from August 21st, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from August 21st, our payroll period ending August 25th, our bills through August 27th, amendment to Chapter 111 of the City Code to increase total number of C1, C2 liquor licenses, and the Highland Ridge Development Offset Utilities and Regional Lift Station additional cost. So, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mark and JR. Can I have a roll call, please?
Saban. Yes. Schreiber is absent. Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Coretta.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. First up is we have AT1 is the revised license agreement for the right-of-way of the owners of 1504 Hamilton.
Yes, it's just a minor change. The original amendment, the original agreement that I presented at the last Committee of the Whole was for 20, initial term being 20 years. The potential buyers requested an extension, the initial term being 40 years. Obviously, everything remains the same.
Okay.
If the city decides to widen the, one of the streets or install or construct sidewalks along the property, we have the right to do that to stop the license agreement. So that's about the only change.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to approve AT1.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, JR and Darren, any questions, concerns? Okay, can I have a roll call, please?
Saban. Yes. Schreiber is absent. Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
And Coretta.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, the Pavement Marking Program Award.
Last-
Very prestigious award.
Yeah, yes it is, yes it is. Last item on the agenda this evening, PW-1 2019 Pavement Marking Program. This is an annual program that we've been doing now for several years. We did have bid opening. It was held on August 29th, 2019. Two bidders in attendance. The budgeted amount was $125,000. Low bid came in the amount of $85,459.52. Staff would be requesting council's consideration for this evening.
All right, looking for a motion to approve PW1.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got Christina and Mark. Any questions, concerns?
I just wanted a quick question. The little red dots where it says intersection on
Yes.
that, what does that mean exactly?
The majority of those are stop bars and crosswalks. If there is no crosswalk there, or if there's only, let's say, two legs have crosswalks, then it would only be two crosswalks. But it's crosswalks and stop bars.
It is a stop sign.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm getting one.
Was there one more thing we were trying to add for pavement marking? Maybe we could get an add-on to that contract, or no?
We were looking at the concrete, and I'm looking for, just since Ben brought it up, next week, we had positive bids for concrete this year, but throughout the course of the summer, throughout the course of main breaks and additional repairs, we do have some additional concrete work that we would like to bring back for consideration to that contract. So that would be something that next week, or I'm sorry, in 2 weeks, we would have that additional amount, the exact amount, to request for council for the additional work.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, looking for a roll call.
Motion to adjourn?
We need a roll call. We had to vote on this first. Then we can adjourn.
Jared's ready to roll.
I thought it was done.
Schreiber is absent. Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
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 All right, well, JR's already made a motion to adjourn.
I'll second JR.
Seconded by Darren.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That was pretty,
So that is interesting, though. That means all these down here that didn't have. It's crazy.
I zoned out after the pledge.